very happy that your laboratory is focusing on the molecular aspects, but also, as you said, the experiential aspects, meditation, meaning, purpose. And this notion of flow is something that I want to just ask you about. When you see things like Tai Chi, if you're in New York City, you see people early in the morning, if you get up, you see them doing Tai Chi. Or years ago, I saw an interview with Iggy Pop, as a musician from, like the 70s, and he's like in tremendously good shape now and has always been. And they asked him, like, what's your secret? They always ask these kind of like, what do you eat kind of things. And he was like, it's all in the Qigong breathing. And I chuckled because Tai Chi, Qigong breathing, I personally believe that whether or not it's running, Tai Chi, Qigong breathing, or lifting weights, the activity itself has certain benefits related to respiration, blood flow, muscle stress, et cetera, and recovery. But that the additional layer of benefit comes from the understanding over time, yoga as well, the understanding over time of how to direct energy in your body and mind, to be able to force yourself to get through some hard repetitions, but then to rest completely in the rest period, to dynamically move from one position to another, not just as a physical movement, but as an exercise in being able to anticipate, okay, here comes the painful part. I'm going to not brace myself too much. I'm going to try and quote unquote flow through it, but I'm also going to put some restraint and pull back. And so I do think that for every physical and mental activity, there's the learning and then there's the meta learning that comes from just having done it over and over. So you have this expectation and understanding. You're learning how to allocate energy. And I would just like your thoughts about this. So I don't think it's Qigong per se. Tai Chi per se, yoga, Pilates per se, lifting weights per se. I think those have each different benefits. But what are your thoughts about learning to be a better, oh gosh, this sounds super woo, but what the heck, energy channeler? Two scientists talking about energy channeling.
Well, this is not woo. I mean, the mitochondria flow energy. You can say they're a channel for energy flow from biochemistry to electricity to ATP to metabolites to reactive oxygen species. All of these are different forms or modalities of energy. Is there like a molecular reality to Qigong or to Qi or to prana or right? Like maybe. And if we look at all of these practices, right, and we ask, what's the point of consilience? Like, what's true? Maybe they all have like a little piece of the truth. Like molecular biology and molecular sciences also has a piece of the truth, but it's not the whole truth. And my sense is, what is true that kind of is a bigger container to contain both our molecular, physical existence and our experiential existence, right? The emotions, the states of consciousness, states of mind that we know are real, like crazy states of consciousness that we can experience with psychedelics, for example. Like what can encapsulate, right, all of this? What's the bigger truth? And I think that bigger truth is that we are energy. And we flow through this channel, this body, right? We have mouth, we have nose, lungs, heart. All of this you can understand, or anatomy, human anatomy you can understand as an energy delivery, an energy flow system, like a flow cell, right? Like a microchip. And then there are gates that close and open, and then you can process information. Instead of electricity flowing through, we flow food. And then oxygen is at the other end pulling on electrons. So maybe all those practices have something to do with, the movement of energy, which ultimately is electrons flowing through your metabolism, through your mitochondria. But then there's an experiential dimension to that, which is just as real. We don't have scientific tools to measure this. We can't, image this with an MRI, maybe not yet. But I suspect there's a truth there. And maybe one piece of that truth, and that's, the way you describe Tai Chi and the way, we do exercise, like you exercise, you push hard, and then you need to rest hard. If you don't rest hard, you're going to injure yourself, and you're not going to get as strong. You're not going to, grow or, evolve. Mentally, we need resistance. And there's so think about energy resistance brings us to think, there's a philosophy of education that could be built around this. You need to, the art of education is finding the right amount of resistance to expose a child to, right? If the problem is too hard or you're too severe, you're going to crush them, right? You kill their spirit. But if you don't apply any resistance, there's no rules, then the energy is like this, and then they'll never learn. There needs to be like just a sweet spot, right? That's what great masters, great mentors are able to do. I think I've started to see my role as a mentor for people in the lab, like this a little bit. I see them as energetic processes. They're transforming energy. They need the right amount of resistance and, not too much. And it brings me more compassion maybe for them as energetic movements. And then I realize I'm more sensitive to the effect I have, on them. But all of this movement and the Tai Chi, the exercise, lifting and resting is analogous to what the heart does. The way that the heart works is by contracting systole, right? And then by relaxing. And then contracting and relaxing. Same thing for like the way neurons work. Boom, action potential, refractory phase. You need to have that period of silence, right? Boom, action potential and refractory. Same thing with sleep-wake cycles. You need to get awake, your body temperature rises, cortisol spikes up, you're aware of the world, you're exposed to stressors. If there's not enough stressors / challenges / meaningful things in your life, you get bored and you want to die. So you need that, but then you need to kind of let go and sleep, right? So sleep-wake cycle, same thing. And maybe all of this has evolved from, our existence on this planet. Like the sun rises, things get warm, right? And there's energy flowing around, and then the sun sets. It's same movement as sunrise, sunset, day, night is contraction, resting. Yoga, the whole, practice of yoga is based around this. Like you strain your muscles, crazy positions, immense resistance on your muscles. And then for what? For Shavasana. And the whole point of yoga is Shavasana. So you ready the body by, bringing so much resistance into it so that you can finally relax. And then the art of training maybe is not about the doing, right? But it's about the being. And maybe that's a broader kind of philosophy of life, but the art of being, which, because if we do too much doing, I think, many professionals know this. If you're always in a doing, and you're never kind of sitting back and resting and just being, and being really means just flowing, to use, verbs. Being is just having your energy flow, and it's doing its thing, and it's healing. It's healing the body, and consolidating memories, and everything, all the beautiful things that happen, during sleep. And
as opposed to transforming it into something in the outside world, like
Correct.
a paper or investing, and it's the balance. Clearly, what I'm hearing, and I don't want to speak for you, but what I'm hearing is that so much of health, mental health and physical health, and life really is about states of mind and body and mastering the transitions into and through and out of those states, but in a controlled way, learning to direct those so that we're not at the whim of, this is the challenge, that we get pulled into the drama or the numbing out of some online activity, or the energy of something going on over there that really pulls us, and so I think we have to have that self-awareness. But I love the idea that resistance itself is the thing to seek, not as a permanent state, but as a temporary state that you can then move through.
Yeah.
So, and I think if clearly people learned a ton today, but if nothing else, they now understand the biophysical principle that it's through that resistance that you direct and create energy for something else.
Transform.
You transform
Yes.
it. Exactly. Thank you.
Good managers know this. Like if you want to have fulfilled employees, right, and a team that really derives joy and purpose, like people need to grow and learn. And the way that happens is by creating the right amount of resistance. And Steven Pressfield said this the first time I heard of him. He was on the Joe Rogan podcast talking about his book and resistance, and he talks about it in slightly different ways. But I think his resistance philosophy boils down to energy. And he talked about how when you feel afraid of something, right? Like as an artist, I think he speaks, as an artist and for artists, like you feel into like this problem or this challenge or, this new project, and you're like, oh, like, I don't know, like this is scary shit. Well, I think his advice was, when you feel fear, this is the signal that there's something there for you, right? That this can help you grow. And I resonate with this, and I make a lot of my decisions. I can think rationally and think logically about steps in a biochemical pathway, and about like logically, like in 5 years and 10 years, like doing strategic planning. But I have an increasing sense that when you make decisions with your heart, and basically this is by listening to your energetic state, you see something, you see someone, you're like, ooh, like I like this, or like this is a little scary, right? I started to ask my wife, and she's really good at this. How do you feel? I think I used to ask my partner, what are you thinking? And if you ask someone, what are you thinking? Like right away, whoop, you go into this like cognitive level, which is really devoid of like the beautiful movement of energy. If you ask someone, how are you feeling? And then if that person, if you can, you create the space for that person to really answer from that place, then you actually get to, tune in to their energetic state. And then you can be, I think, much better partner if you see a relationship as an energetic exchange, right? And then I can be I can be in a better state if I know that, ooh, she's not feeling great. And then I think I think the more you cultivate this kind of energetic awareness, I agree. Awareness, personal awareness, and I would say energetic awareness, feeling into your mitochondria, maybe that's what it boils down to, I think is our greatest superpower as human beings. And that's not a new concept. It's, I think, the foundation for, a lot of spiritual traditions, like cultivating awareness of self. And then you realize at some point, there's no self. I'm this like movement of energy, and then you movement of energy. And then we're all kind of emerging from, an underlying current of consciousness, and their ideas about this. I'm not sure how it all, fully gels together, but awareness also as a scientist. If you move through science without self-awareness, then your biases end up ruling the kind of projects you take on, and end up ruling the kind of grants you apply to, and end up ruling the kind of science you produce and you generate. And so without self-awareness, I think we're not always doing, fulfilling our potential and fulfilling our collective potential, right? As humanity, like if we can be the best person that we can be, then we can help other beings, being their best self. We can be present. And when you're present to someone, it's basically saying, I see you, energetic process, and I'm opening to you. How are you feeling? That's why I think those kind of conversations and connecting deeply with another human being is so rewarding. And that's true, I think, across the board. We're social creatures, and what this means is we love connecting with other people. And I suspect that's because it helps us flow, right? It helps us, our energy flow. And then we love projects that are stimulating, inspiring. And what those words mean, stimulating, inspiring, they're all like energetic terms. So the things that helps us flow, being like cognitive or spiritual or intellectual, social, all of those I think probably boil down to is this thing helping energy flow through my mitochondria more easily, or is it bringing me resistance? Or is this thing bringing me resistance that I feel I have the capacity, the inner potential to push through? And then when I let go, then I become stronger, right? And I grow as a person, and I learn.
I love it. It's a mitochondrial or energy flow centric view of everything, and I think it is the basis of life. I know you're working on a book now. It sounds like there's also another book to follow that one, the mitochondrial marriage at some point. I'm only half kidding. What you described is really beautiful, and it captures so much of what people are seeking, and I think what people understand intuitively about the things that make them feel good versus the things that make them feel bad. And we have to pin above that resistance is critical to growth. So it's not just about things that don't take effort versus things that take effort.
It's not about easy.
It's not as simple as that. It's not infinitely complicated, but it's not as simple as that. Speaking of solutions, before I came in here to talk with you, I solicited the internet for some questions. We sometimes do a or not rapid fire, but brief answer Q&A. So if I may, I'm going to go fetch my phone and gather a couple of questions to ask for some short answers. First question is, why is it that over-consuming calories causes disruption to the mitochondrial pathways?
Yep. I think it's because it increases energy resistance. It's like a simple electrical circuit, maybe a computer, and then you're cranking up the voltage, right? So you're like pushing, when you eat too much, you're putting too much food, too much energy into the system, and then the system gets overwhelmed. And then that increases blood glucose or, blood lipids. And so the effect this has, we understand it pushes electrons onto your poor mitochondria. Mitochondria evolved to be super sensitive. And then when there's like a bit, not enough energy, they change their behavior. If there's too much energy, they change their behavior. If there's chronically too much energy pushing on them, if you do we have a little equation that helps us think energetically about this called the energy resistance principle, ERP. And this says if you raise the concentration of glucose, you raise the energy potential, like the voltage equivalent. And then that increases energy resistance. If you're not flowing that energy, if you're not moving, being active, stimulated by something, you just put too much food in the system, it increases the resistance to energy flow. And then you start to have more dissipative losses, like too much reactive oxygen species and too much, the damage, molecular damage can happen. That's probably why overeating and why diabetes and why metabolic diseases increases the rate of aging and increases the rate of all sorts of different diseases. I think it all converges on energy resistance.
Someone asked, has there been any progress made on tissue or organ-specific mitochondrial optimization? And I'll add to that, and or measurement.
So the measurement piece, we're working on this. Anna Monzel in our group, who's moving to Germany now, is developing a mitotyping platform. And if you want to explore if you're a scientist or not, and you want to explore the molecular differences between mitochondria and different organs of the body, you can go to mitotypeexplorer.org and then explore the different mitochondria and different organs. Tissue, organ-specific mitochondrial optimization, I think mostly is going to be driven by the organ or tissue specific use and flow of energy in that tissue. Like we were talking about earlier, if you train on something, you train, on playing the violin, parts of your brain are going to be, more activated. Specific circuits are going to be activated together. They're going to, wire together and then, make more mitochondria most likely and probably become more efficient as well. So there's rewiring at that level. So I think mitochondria follow or are there to serve the flow of energy. So if you flow more energy in your legs, you're going to make more mitochondria to kind of increase the number of flow channels. Mitochondria has little, channels to flow energy towards oxygen. I don't know that we have ways yet, maybe with, light therapy, photobiomodulation, or maybe electromagnetic field at some point. We need to be developing as, healing science unfolds and we understand ourselves energetically. I think we need energy-based or energy-informed approaches to help organisms heal, and probably those are going to target mitochondria.
Yeah, using light or other tools to direct healing of specific internal organs. That's going to require something, a device of some sort, as opposed to using one area of the body or one component of the brain, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, most likely. Although there's some like crazy things that monks can do, apparently, like increasing the blood flow in one hand but not the other. There's even data showing that advanced meditators can increase blood flow in like one part of the brain. And so there might be unsuspected ways of tapping into, using the mind basically to direct energy in different ways. I've started to see the mind as, a master regulator, controller of energy. Like the mind can literally depolarize your muscles, right? And then cause you to run, right? That it starts up here with the inspiration or the motivation to contract your muscles or to run or to do any behavior. This is like the mind controlling the energy flow in your muscles and then making more mitochondria as a result.
what are the best or most sensitive tests for mitochondrial health, if any exist? And I will say a number of questions, and there were many, many questions, centered around this idea of, how can I measure mitochondrial health as a patient or as a, with my physician? Are there any companies that make good mitochondrial health tests?
There are diagnostic tests that clinics offer somewhere, and those are good to diagnose mitochondrial diseases. There's a few companies that have popped up because this is the future. Like thinking about ourselves energetically, realizing we are energy. If that's true, which I think it is, then what do you do about this? And I suspect we're working on developing an institute that will really bring together the science of energy, mitochondrial biology, and psychobiology with the human experience. That really is what moves us into action and determines whether our lives is worth living. Those things haven't been brought together. And we haven't also explored scientifically the healing process. So we're developing an institute that will do the research to develop those technologies, and then we'll do the work as well to bring those into technologies that can reach people, and people can have in their homes, or maybe as a wearable, or as a kit that you get at home to really help you tune into your energy and know what works for you, which diet, which supplement, or which there might be. It might be that this person in your life, when you're with them, it's energetically, it really does well for you. And maybe that means it's a good person for you. And there might be other people that, really suck your energy. So we're working on initiatives and new methods to tune into mitochondrial health. I don't know now of things that I would use to tap into the health of our mitochondria.
I can attest to both the pro-mitochondrial health and anti-mitochondrial health of certain relationships. Yeah. What are some small daily tweaks that can help increase, and people said energy, but let's just use that as a proxy for energy flow. Like if you could give just 1, 2, or 3 recommendations. There are a lot of busy people in this question list. They're saying, I've got kids, I've got a busy job. 1, 2, or 3 things that are straightforward outside the typical, exercise, get your sleep, et cetera. What are some tweaks, dare I say, hacks?
I think trying not to eat in the morning, like skipping breakfast, seems like it does a lot of well for a lot of people. And I've heard for a long time, breakfast is the most important, meal of the day. That my dad used to say that. He still believes that. And I think it's hurting him, his health, and is now in his 60s. So I think trying to be hungry once in a while is probably a good thing. And then when you feel that hunger, and then you're like reflexively reaching for food, I think you're probably doing something good for your mitochondria. Your mitochondria, when you're hungry, or when a cell, what we know that the science is, if a cell is hungry in the dish, the mitochondria start to fuse, and there's more kind of the social connection between your mitochondria. So maybe it happens inside the body, and then you get rid of the bad mitochondria, you make more new ones that work better, more efficient. So being hungry once in a while is probably a good thing. And then being out of breath. You mentioned one of your friend, I think, who says, I just need to be out of breath for an hour. Finding ways to be out of breath, that can be like a run, it can be being in a gym, whatever makes you breathe harder. You breathe harder because your mitochondria are calling for oxygen. It's that simple. So if you feel like you need to breathe harder, it means your mitochondria are flowing more energy, and it's probably good for you.
Great.
Yeah, I need to say something about meditation. I think somehow meditation does something to our energy that is valuable. And just yesterday, there was a piece published in Nature Reviews Cardiology about transcendental meditation. I think that shows that the world is changing. A clinical medical journal like Nature Reviews Cardiology is saying maybe there's something about like calming down the body, right? And not only is this like calming down the mind, sure, like maybe it improves well-being. This could actually be a treatment to help the heart recover, right? And to help treat a very serious, life-threatening disease, cardiovascular disease. So I suspect there's something about meditation. I have a 10-minute every morning. I sit down. I'm religious about this. I wake up. First thing I do is sit down for 10 minutes with Sam Harris's Waking Up app. And it just helps me connect with my energy. And then I think for the rest of the day, I'm a little more in tune, and I probably can make better decisions, and I'm more grounded, mentally, but probably also physically.
Awesome. Yeah. Last question. Feel free to pass on this one. There were a number of people who asked whether there is any evidence, animal studies, in vitro, or even in humans, that electromagnetic fields can disrupt mitochondrial flow. This is, I realize, somewhat of a barbed wire topic because it immediately gets us to the place where people think, oh, they're, worried about, 5G and Bluetooth and things like that. But I don't know. I did an episode on fertility where I reviewed a meta-analysis of data showing that indeed sperm motility can be impacted. But what are the data on EMFs or other electrical signals or other energy fields that could potentially impact brain, sperm, eggs?
If there's something in most cells that could respond to electromagnetic fields, I think it would be mitochondria. If you reason about this from first principles, in the mitochondria, there's a bunch of iron, iron sulfur clusters, which some of them at least are paramagnetic, meaning they interact with magnetic fields. So I think in terms of biological plausibility, I think there's basis to believe that mitochondria could be sensitive and respond and be functionally impacted by some magnetic fields. So that's for biological plausibility. Data, I know some data where people have measured mitochondrial respiration, right, which is flowing electrons to oxygen, and you see oxygen disappearing. So you can measure this very well in the lab. And then you can measure this in the absence of any magnetic field, and then with a bit of a field, a stronger field, a stronger field, stronger field. And it seems like there's an effect on this one function of mitochondria, which is respiration. So there seems to be data that says this could happen. What we're talking about in terms of magnetic field there is not 5G, and it's not some like Wi-Fi widely used magnetic fields or electromagnetic radiation. They're pretty specific, and the Earth's magnetic field, which is in like very low level, seems to perhaps have an effect also on mitochondria. And there are biophysicists like my wife Nirosha Murugan, who has done experiments with patterned magnetic fields, which is different than just you apply a static magnetic field like with a magnet, right? Or a field that doesn't change over time. It's like a sine wave. There's no information there. But you can pattern a magnetic field to have information, to have content, like Morse code, back to the Morse code analogy. So you can deliver information through that. And it seems we have preliminary data that shows the mitochondria might be changing in response to, this, basically you're beaming energy at a certain pattern instead of with molecules like glucose and pyruvate and lipids and stuff, and or light, right? Now you're beaming energy in another modality as electromagnetic waves. And there are proteins clearly and iron sulfur clusters that can be sensitive to that. So I think there's some biological plausibility. There's evidence that this might happen and affect mitochondrial respiration. And there's, I think, another layer of sophistication that tells us this potentially could be harnessed eventually to help kind of rewrite some energetic states in the body. Maybe we can use those at some point to promote the healing process.
Love it.
So we'll see.
We will see.
Yeah.
Dr. Martin Picard, thank you so much. You gave us a master class in mitochondrial function. You clarified a lot of what is clearly confusion for people out there, including many biologists, mind you, about how mitochondrial work and the spectacular things that they do. And the way you frame this whole notion of energy flow, and I guess we should credit your wife here for energy is the potential for change.
Right.
And the behaviors, the mindsets, the small moments where you can give yourself relief, like an exhale, and just take the tension off the body, those are surely creating energetic savings that you can allocate to other things. And to just think about life as a game of sorts of controlling your energy, and it gets us to sleep and all the things that we love talking about on this podcast. And the way you framed it is truly novel and is just spectacular. Also, you're reversing graying of hair. You're giving people agency over that. And I just want to reemphasize that how incredible it is that you're approaching things at this very high level of subjective experience, this very real level that people live in all the time. And yet you're able to bridge across all these levels of analysis down to the subcellular and biophysical mechanisms. It's really spectacular. You're truly an N of one, as we say. And I'm very excited for what you're putting together in terms of this scientific institute to solve healing. Your book, we'll talk again later at some point about your book. And I should probably also sit down and have a conversation with your wife, because she's got some spectacular results in this realm too. And
She does.
just thank you for the education and the actionable items that you're providing. Thanks for coming out all this way. I'm very grateful to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew.